Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, David Layer is here from the NAB. Now, David has this cool job. He's in charge of, advanced technology initiatives with NAB, especially as they apply to radio. So we're going to hear about some cool technologies, including RadioDNS and DTS's AutoStage and more, how metadata is so important. That's coming up next on TWiRT. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionics Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nautel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at nautel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb from the top of the tower. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host, here in the Telos Alliance Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. It's my home, it's my office, and I'm delighted to be here. Although, I got to tell you, next week, our show will be coming to you from New York City. So watch out for that. And I really appreciate the folks at Cumulus for giving us a place to meet and do the show from. But it's not about me. We've got a co-host here and a guest that you're going to want to hear from. First of all, let's check in with our co-host, Chris Tarr in Mukwonago, Wisconsin. Chris, good to see you.
Well, hello there, Kirk. Good to be here. Busy week this week, so I'm actually glad to be here where I can slow down a little bit and take a little bit of a break from all the craziness that's been going on. So in the middle of yet another winter storm watch. So we've got some snow coming down, and hopefully no phone calls. I can stay in here where it's warm.
Yeah. And I know you've been out and about doing so many things. You had some projects from last time that we got together, and maybe when things settle down, you can share with us pictures and video and stories of what you've had to work on. Because what I find is, Chris, that if Chris Tarr is working on it, probably other people are too. You seem to have a lot of the typical challenges that engineers have.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Translators, FM, AM, STL, studios, you name it. I do it. So, it just, just like everybody else, I kind of get these, I'm kind of a slave to tower climbers. So I'll have like a bunch of stuff going on where there's, it's just basically sitting around waiting and doing office work. And all of a sudden, tower climbers are available. Let's do 7 projects and get it all out while I can. So, so it's been a busy streak. Now I'm on a little bit of a down streak. I think tomorrow, next week, it's going to pick up a little bit more again.
All right. Well, speaking of picking up, we are 6 weeks away from the NAB show in Las Vegas, NAB 2023. And someone who actually works at NAB is here with us, and that's David Layer. David, it's so good to see you. Welcome in.
Kirk, hi, and hello, Chris. Thanks, guys, for talking to me today. You're not going to believe this, Chris, but Kirk, excuse me. 635 is my lucky number.
Really?
So, yeah. What are the odds?
Well, that's not a number you can pick for the lottery. So when do you get to like horse number 635 at the races? No, when do you get to use it?
I don't. See, that's what makes this extra sweet. So,
well, we'll try to make it. We'll try to make this. Yeah, we'll try to make this your lucky show. How about that?
Okay. Thank you. Thanks again.
All right. Inviting. So David's here, and actually let's get a little preview. David, you've got, tell us about your job. You're involved with advanced technology at the NAB. So you're kind of right at the cutting edge of what companies, people who are members of NAB, manufacturers, what they're doing. What are a couple things that you find attractive or that you get to work on, and give us a little preview before we get into the meat and potatoes of our show.
Sure. And it's a great place to be. And it's hard to believe this is my 28th year at NAB. And, for a long time, I've recognized that the cool thing about working for a trade association, especially one, especially NAB, which, if I do say so myself, I think we're a pretty darn good trade association, is, we're really at the focal point of an industry. And I've been doing, we have the show. I mean, that's one of the things I work on every year is the show. That's kind of an all hands on deck activity. We have Pilot, which is our innovation initiative. And I get to manage projects that take place under Pilot. And Pilot has this thing we call the Pilot Radio Testbed, which is my baby. That's one of the things I'm responsible for. I've been doing some good outside work, but getting paid for it. I've been on the RadioDNS steering board now for many years, and I've just come off my 4th year as chair of that steering board. And for those of you who aren't familiar with RadioDNS, it's a nonprofit, a technical standard setting organization based in the UK, which develops standards for hybrid radio. And we'll be talking about that, I think, Kurt.
Sure. We sure will. Yeah.
Another group that I'm working with lately and for a long time is NABA, the North American Broadcasters Association. They're based in Toronto. They have a radio committee of which I am vice chair. And we're actually a partner. NABA is a partner with NAB at the show. And there will be a session at the engineering conference on Sunday morning, which NABA has produced, and I'm actually involved in that. I'll be moderating that session, so that's something I can fill you in on. And NABA's an interesting group to work with. It's primarily Canadian and American broadcasters, and we do get some involvement from Mexico as well. So when within NAB itself, I mentioned that I do show work. I have been intimately involved in what we call our auto initiative for a number of years.
Yeah.
And that has been, that's been one of my best gigs, I have to say, because it's taken me to auto shows, and I love cars. I own a 2006 Chevy Corvette, and which I only bought 4 years ago, but it's a really fun toy to have. And so being part of the auto initiative has given me an opportunity to hobnob with the auto folks. And, and I hope make a difference for what we're trying to accomplish. So I don't know, that's a lot right there. Maybe you ought to just stop.
Yeah, all those things, and DTS AutoStage and HD Multiplex or multicasting or we're going to try to get to all that stuff. David and Chris, right now we're going to get to talk for a minute about a company that's also at the forefront of this, and that's Nautel. Nautel is not only a sponsor of this show, they are the participant in NAB in a big way, and they do the Nautel Users Group, and that is coming up on Sunday morning. If you go to the website, nautel.com/NAB, that'll take you to what Nautel is doing, nautel.com/NAB. You can get a free exhibit pass there at the Nautel website. It's LV7673, and even a link to go register to get you into the exhibits for free. There's, of course, I mentioned the NUG Radio Technology Forum. That's going on Sunday morning, as it always does for Nautel, 8:30 a.m. to noon at the Flamingo, Las Vegas. And I'm going to get to speak there for a few minutes pretty early on Sunday, I think about 8:45, 8:50 or so. And then I've got to scurry back over to the Telos Alliance booth at NAB at the new West Hall. And then post NAB, Nautel is having a 3-day training course, and you can sign up for that. Full details and registration are at that website I just mentioned, nautel.com/NAB. 3 days, the April 24, 25, 26, for a very intensive training course. Learn all about Nautel transmitters and the technologies that they're putting into use, especially with this HD multicasting. You can learn about that, and that's pretty slick as well. So check it out, nautel.com/NAB, and I look forward to seeing you there. I'll get to be there. Oh, and they'll feed you too if you come to the NUG thing on Sunday morning. Okay, we're here with Chris Tarr and David Layer. Chris, I'm excited to jump right in and start learning about some of these technologies. David, I'm not sure what you want to hit first. We do have some photos to get through, and I think maybe David, you do have quite a few photos. Maybe we ought to start hitting those first, and then
Okay. Let me
fill in
provide
our
a
other
little
topics
background.
after that.
Let me provide a little background. I
Sure.
think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
We had something at in DC 2 weeks ago now, I guess. It was called the State Leadership Conference, SLC for short. And it's one of our three main events. We have the NAB show, of course, in April. We have NAB show New York in October. And then we have the State Leadership Conference, which is different. It's not an open to the public kind of an event. It's primarily exists for state broadcaster associations to meet together, to meet with us, and we spend a day with them, and then they are just deployed onto Capitol Hill, and they go and talk to their senators and Congress people about issues that are of importance to broadcasters. And this year's event was extra cool, I think, because number one, we had great turnout, and this is really the best turnout by far since the pandemic. I think this is only our second try now since the pandemic. Obviously, we didn't hold the event at the peak. So I think the number I read was 560 attendees, which is a good number. The other cool thing, though, is the event was held at a baseball stadium. NAB is a block from Nationals Park. And it turns out, like on the suite level of the stadium, there are some conference room areas. And that's where the program was held at Nationals Park. They also have a club for receptions and things, and we held a reception there in the evening. And the way this ties in the best, Kirk, to what we're talking about is during the reception, we demonstrated a couple vehicles that have the DTS AutoStage technology, and that's the meat of the photos that I'll be showing you here in just a moment.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. If Suncast is ready and if you're ready, David, we could start with the first picture.
Let's go ahead and start. So this is a picture from the event. You see me, I'm wearing the red baseball hat, and you all, thanks for indulging me, because this was such a cool event. I love sharing pictures of it. We had encouraged attendees to wear some sporting attire because of the location in the ballpark there. To my right is Sam Atheny, our CTO. He's wearing a jersey from ECU, his alma mater. Next to Sam is Dave Samtrella, who is our joint board chair. He's the CEO of Salem Media. To his right is April Carty-Sipp. She's the EVP of Industry Affairs at NAB, and she is also manages our auto committee. We have an auto committee, which is comprised of board members, chaired by Ginny Morris of Hubbard. And this panel that you see here convened at the SLC was to talk about our auto initiative. And then last but not least, to my left is a guy named Manny Centeno, who works for FEMA. So this was our panel. Each of us, it was only a 30-minute panel, so we didn't talk for a whole heck of a long time. The thing that I talked about was AM radio and the issues surrounding use of AM in electric vehicles, and I'll talk about that again shortly, I suspect. Let's go to the next picture. Just going to fly through some of these. This is a zoom out of the room. It was interesting. We actually had two rooms, and we had a stage on each one, and we would cut back and forth between the two stages so that everybody felt like, they were in the place to be. And it's cool because the stadium is just totally wired for video and audio. So this was a very easy setup to pull off. And then you can see, if you look in the foreground there, you see a placard which says California. Well, that's how the room is organized. Each state has a table with a flag on it. So it's really fun. It's kind of like a political convention. So let's go to the next picture, please. This is just more of us. I'm talking there on the panel. Next slide. So now we're down, and that was the conference room. Now we're down by what they call the PNC Diamond Club. It's a really nice, event space for holding receptions and things. And on the back end of it, it opens out onto the stadium. And in fact, one of the things they had going there was a tour of the batting cages and the bullpens. So it was a fun place to be. And it's clear that people like being in ballparks. Our attendees were they were all day long going outside, looking at the stadium, taking phone calls in the seats, in the stands, and so on. But these cars, during the reception, the one on the left is a Hyundai Ioniq 5. That is an electric car. And it has DTS AutoStage. The vehicle on the right is a Mercedes-Benz C-Class vehicle, which also has AutoStage. And we're going to spend the next few minutes here looking at the implementations and talking about the differences between them. So let's go ahead and move forward, please. Okay, so here's me, sitting in the Hyundai. And let's go to the next slide, which is a zoom in of this. What you see here is, this is the AutoStage interface for the Hyundai. And if you look on the left side there, you see that's the station list.
Yeah.
And every station has a logo. It has station information. It has a slogan if they so desire. If you look kind of towards the middle of the screen, you'll see orange HD radio logos with numbers by them. So you see 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. In this AutoStage implementation, all the multicast channels are listed in the guide, just as if they were, main channels. So this is a nice way for broadcasters to make listeners aware of these multicast channels. It really kind of promotes them to what the main channels look like.
Except for a Tesla, that's the biggest screen I've seen, for operating in a vehicle. I maybe I'm behind the times. I'm sure I am, but that's a big screen.
It's, I have to say, it's not uncommon. And this is one of the most advanced Hyundai models. But if you look at the other models they sell, like they have the gas-powered models, they don't have the fancy dash instrumentation that this electric car has, but the infotainment panel is almost exactly the same. So it's a great car too. I have to say, this is actually my car, and I've had it for a year now, and I really like it. I think it's a great car. I love the electric. I have a charger in my garage, so I charge it up at night, and it's just fun to drive. I really like it a lot. So let's move on, please, to the next slide. So this is a ballpark fun thing. You see me sitting in the car there smiling. That guy standing next to me is George Washington, and they have these mascots, the presidents. And go to the next slide, please. Oops, okay, and zoom in, we'll go in. This is just another angle of my car. So next slide. And now you get a better view of the guide.
Okay.
That you see, and that's a touch screen. I could scroll, you see all the fingerprints. I probably should have cleaned it off. And now here we go. This is me with Abe and George. And they're a lot of fun. And at Nats games, in the fourth inning, they come out along with Teddy Roosevelt and Thomas Jefferson, and they run a race. And it's hilarious. So, and they're available for parties. So, it was just a fun venue. I hope that our attendees enjoyed it as much as I did. Okay, let's move on, please. Okay, now we're going to move over to the Mercedes. And this is the first time that xperi has demonstrated the AutoStage technology in a C-Class Mercedes. Previously, the only demonstrations that I saw, and I'm pretty sure the only ones they were doing, were of S-Class Mercedes. And, the difference between the S-Class and the C-Class is at least $50,000. So this is now more of a kind of, mainstream vehicle that regular people are going to buy, as opposed to the S-Class, which is a really high-end vehicle. So this is a nice car. I liked it a lot. Let's go to the next slide, please. And now this is just from a slightly different angle. And the next photo, we zoom in on that display.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a lot different than the Hyundai's display. And you see that cool picture there of Tom Jones. Mm-hmm. If you were to put your finger on that and swipe, what would happen is you would go to those other stations. You see their logos kind of in the back there. Mm-hmm. So that's one way that you can move between stations in the AutoStage interface that Mercedes has implemented. on the top there, you see favorites, FM, AM, and tune-in radio. So those are the choices that listeners have. And internet radio is, front and center in this implementation. And it's simply, whatever tune-in has to offer. I don't know that it's a special set of tune-in stations. It may be. I have to admit, I don't know. But those are the choices. So let's go to the next slide, please. So this is also the first time that I believe this was demonstrated. If you go to the next photo, we zoom in and you see lyrics. So Xperi is making lyrics available in the DTS platform on Mercedes vehicles. And this is a new thing, if you had purchased a Mercedes, a year ago, I do believe you can upgrade it to include lyrics. So it's really kind of the future has arrived where we can update the technology in the car.
I don't know. That kind of seems like a backseat thing to me. I'm not sure. I'd be too tempted to do karaoke while driving.
So you'll have to get an Xperi person on your show, Kirk, and get the skinny on this. I'm just kind of a tourist. And I don't have all the lowdown information. Let's go to the next picture.
All right.
And again, just kind of the overview. And now we go in. Now, this is a really cool thing that we're looking at. Let me try and explain it. If you look at the logos there, let me back up. This car was driven to Washington from Detroit.
Okay.
And when it was in Detroit, the Xperi guy who was driving it made some of the Detroit local stations favorites. And then he drove to D.C. Of course, he can't receive those stations in D.C. Because he'd made them favorites in Detroit, he has the ability to stream those stations while he's here in Washington.
Oh, how cool is that?
And it's only those stations. So it's not like he can, of course, TuneIn is there. So to the extent that TuneIn has stations from other markets, I suppose you can do that. But as far as the radio tuner, the hybrid radio features go, you have to make the station a favorite when you're actually receiving it in order for it to stay in favorites and be available as a stream.
And this doesn't depend upon Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. This is part of the radio's functionality, right?
Right. And in fact, with CarPlay and Android Auto, those are what we call projection technologies, because you're just projecting what's in your phone onto the car display. There's no interaction between the tuner and the phone.
Right.
But hybrid radio changes that. Hybrid radio is a technology where the over-the-air signal and the internet are combined. And that's the special thing about it. So this was pretty cool, and I don't know that I've ever seen this demonstrated so clearly before either. So let's keep moving here. And then go ahead to the next one where we zoom in on that. Same thing. These are just more, some of those, now I think what we're seeing here is a mix of Detroit stations and DC's WMZQ is a DC station. Big 100's a DC station. If you look, though, at the top, there's a now playing area there at the top of that big pane. You see what it says, 99.5 WICD Internet Radio.
Right.
So this is how it looks. And this is this is not something the Hyundai will do, by the way. The Hyundai AutoStage implementation is much more basic. And it does not include, what we call service following, where the stream can be substituted for the over-the-air signal if you're far away. But
either now, David, or at the end of your talk, I'd like to understand, what is essential for the broadcaster to be putting out there so that this technology is aware of the over-the-air signal and aware of the identical stream that's available. I'm sure you'll answer that, but I just want to make sure that
let's answer right now, Kirk, because I'm looking at the clock here, and I do tend to ramble on. The short answer is broadcasters should be signing up with Xperi to use AutoStage. And there's it's not hard to find. You can find a link where broadcaster signs up. It's free. Once you're signed up, you have access to what Xperi calls the dashboard. And This dashboard gives you the opportunity to put in your station logos, the URLs for your stream, and a connection to your playout system so that the AutoStage system knows what's playing and when it's playing. And that is the short answer to you. That is how that's what you need to do. If you have done all of that, then this Mercedes will behave like I've just been describing.
Wow. David, we got to put a pin right here and take a commercial break and continue the pictures and the stories. I want to get a comment from Chris Tarr at this point, and also I'm going to. Well, let me put in a little plug for our producer, Suncast. Suncast is a former broadcast engineer, and you used examples of those Detroit stations. Suncast has worked at WOMC as an engineer and WYCD 90 and 98.7, 93.1. So anyway, it's a small world, and it's good to have some good people involved here. Chris, what are your thoughts at this moment about what David's talking about?
Boy, these are some things that I've heard about coming down the line, and I've already got started working with xperi and some of this stuff. We're talking about multicasting, and we're for a small group, we're pretty far ahead of the curve on that stuff. But I don't remember if it was David or there was one a couple of years ago. There's a great demonstration or a great discussion on this RadioDNS hybrid radio, where this was all going, and the description was, you turn on the car radio in these modern cars, you have your iPod playing or your media player playing, and you see this beautiful artwork and these graphics and song title and information. You go to satellite radio, you get the same thing. You get this title, artist, this great album artwork. You put it on radio and you see 103.7, and that's it. And you go, okay. So, I think that, it's great that we're finally figuring out a way to put ourselves on par with the rest of this entertainment. Because, again, a lot of these studies are showing that, what people listen to on streams are terrestrial stations. But, we don't get that credit on dashboards, or at least we weren't. And, it was kind of up to us to put together something that's compelling for the dashboard to get the manufacturers to follow along with it. So, I'm very excited to see all these changes and these upgrades, because I think that is the way we're going to remain relevant in the car.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. We used to depend on AM Skywave to listen to maybe a favorite station with a favorite ball team, maybe a baseball game at night, or a hockey game, and now with this, you could keep driving cross country and, with proper cell coverage, listen to your favorite station back home. We'll get to that. Hey, our show This Week in Radio Tech. David Layer's our guest. Chris Tarr is along as co-host. We're brought to you in part by our friends at Broadcast Bionics in the UK. But even though they're in the UK, they get radio all around the world. They know what hosts, co-hosts, morning shows, afternoon shows, overnight. They know what's important to surface, to bring forth to the announcers on the air. Even if you're voice tracked, the folks at Broadcast Bionics really help you make better radio in terms of content and in terms of technical stuff. So we're going to hear from Broadcast Bionics in the Bionics studio. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Bionics Studio. The Bionics Studio brings all audience interaction to the fingertips of a production team in radio, TV and podcast. Our workflow-led system is working 24/7 around the world for small broadcasters and national and international networks. Our telephony module, Bionic Talk Show, allows cost-effective centralization, remote operation, scalability, and resilience across an entire network of stations, but at the same time is used in single-studio self-op environments. Social media curation and activity is now considered a broadcast-critical part of programming. Bionic Social means the studio isn't overwhelmed with a wall of interaction from an ever-growing number of social platforms. We combine SMS, MMS, and email together with a speech-to-text service for listeners using smart speakers. We enable studio teams to curate, filter, and display all platforms in one place, and post text, images, and video content to multiple platforms in one operation. Effortless collection of video content with Bionic Director has helped position some of the world's most successful stations as leaders in viral content, generating appointments to listen and free marketing via retweets and shares. Bionic Contest enables end-to-end tracking of on-air competitions, live reads, and prizes. These could be on-air contests, automated SMS entry, or online. Anywhere, and Skype TX for Radio brings high-quality audio and video contribution into the studio with ease. No need for dedicated PCs to run different applications. Everything is controlled within the Bionic Studio UI, and incoming connections are visible to users along with all other platforms. Our codec integration enables connection, algorithm configuration, and directory to a wide range of IP and ISDN codecs. The Bionic Studio, a unique suite of products designed to enable your talent to work smarter.
The Bionic Studio from Broadcast Bionics Talk Show, social director, and contesting. So much cool stuff from the Bionic Studio. Hey, I'm delighted to be acquainted with Dan McQuillan and his staff of developers there at Broadcast Bionics. Dan's going to be on our show to show off some cool virtualized ideas. I think that's going to be actually right after NAB. We're going to have Dan McQuillan back on the show. He's always got inspiring things to talk about. Thanks a lot, Broadcast Bionics. Check him out, bionics.co.uk or bionic.radio. We'll have a link in the show notes if you want to get in touch with them. And their products are available around the world, including here in the USA. Hey, it's Kirk Harnack on This Week in Radio Tech. Chris Tarr is along from Mukwonago, Wisconsin. And David Layer is here. He is the VP of Advanced Technology, everything fantastic, futuristic at the NAB. So we're in the middle of looking at some technology and pictures from a recent meeting that David was part of. David, if you want to carry us on forward.
Sure, we're nearly done. Let's go back to where we left off, please.
Yeah.
With the photos. This was okay, and go forward. And this is just showing, okay, last thing I show here, I think, is this car has AM radio, and 980 is a local AM station. And it's funny what I didn't think about, but boy, the AM reception inside the stadium was not that good. And then the sun set, and boy, I think this was the only station we could receive at all. Oh. So it put a damper on our AM demo a little bit. Next picture, please. And then next one. And this is another AM station, 1500 AM. That's actually what used to be WTOP.
Right.
For many years.
Yeah.
So, and then I think we have one more. Yeah, so this is kind of fun. If you look behind me, you'll see I'm up on the Jumbotron. A dream come true.
How about that?
And there was a line of people. And this is when you walked through the reception of space and you came outside. You were there by home plate, and they had a camera set up, and people were lined up to get immortalized up on the Jumbotron.
That's awesome. So, and big NAB logos too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. And so that's it for my photos. And it was fun. It's fun to talk about SLC because it's really a good and meaningful event. And I was a little skeptical when they said they were doing it in the ballpark, but no pun intended, it was a home run. So.
Hey, so make sure I understand the technology we're talking about here from xperi is called DTS AutoStage. That's this thing that can give you over the air or internet stream seamlessly or close to it with logos and even lyrics if you want that.
Yep, and it's what we call hybrid radio. It's a radio receiver that's connected both over the air and to the internet. DTS AutoStage is the brand.
Yep.
So that's how you'll always see it marketed.
Okay.
Now at the show this year, my understanding is that what xperi is going to be talking about is this dashboard that I mentioned a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main reasons that broadcasters should definitely sign up with xperi is you get analytics from this technology. So on this dashboard, and they're rolling this out this month, I believe. They're going live with it to broadcasters. Broadcasters who signed up will have access to listening data on their stations. And you'll see a heat map. You'll see, number of listeners versus time of day, et cetera, which of course is only for those cars that have the AutoStage. It's not like a substitute for a survey by Nielsen or anything, because it's strictly the vehicles. And then at the present time in the U.S., those vehicles are going to be Mercedes, Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
well, it's early days in that implementation, but wow, what a beautiful product that it is.
For those of you going to the show, I think this is a must-see exhibit. And it should really be exciting to see this finally. We've been talking about it for years.
By the way, so speaking of the show, the company I work for, TELUS Alliance, we're at the show in the West Hall, and I got notice or saw some PR that NAB has dubbed the West Hall or part of it as broadcast zone, street, central, something like that.
Yeah, I know. You probably know more about that than I do, Kirk.
Okay.
So most of my efforts for the show involve organizing the engineering conference. For example, we have the proceeding, and I've been reviewing papers. I think I had 6 papers to review for our proceeding. And, this is a referee journal where, we read these papers and make sure they're worthy of our, they're not just salesy, and, we try and hold them to a high standard. So I do that. The other main job that I have, which is an enviable job, I must say, is I produce the ham reception.
Oh, okay.
And that's going to be held this year. It used to be held over at the Westgate.
Right.
Then the pandemic hit, of course. We missed 2 years. Now that we're back, this is our second year back. We no longer use the Westgate as part of our show. It's not, a venue where we hold events. So the ham reception is in the West Hall, like the conference is, and like this broadcast center exhibit area that you were talking about. So that's Tuesday night at 6:00. I encourage everybody to show up. I'll shout out a thanks to Telos, who have donated some door prizes. Thank you very much. So far, we have over $10,000 worth of door prizes. So come on down. Come on and see us at the fun event.
Hey, if we could, now we've been talking about this DTS AutoStage. We got a few other topics to talk about. I'm always a little confused between what is AutoStage versus what is RadioDNS. And you mentioned that there's a board, a steering board that you've been part of. It's for supporting IP only devices. Help me understand what's different about RadioDNS.
It's funny you should say that, because actually, RadioDNS at the present time only supports broadcast devices. So let me try and contrast RadioDNS and xperi. xperi is many things. They're a technology provider. They're also a service provider. So broadcasters send their metadata to xperi, and xperi formats it and gets it back to the transmitter, and then the transmitter sends it to the receiver, or maybe it comes in over the internet from the xperi server.
Okay.
RadioDNS is not a service provider. RadioDNS runs a server which broadcasters can use to link to internet content of wherever they happen to have it. So the way this lookup works is when a receiver is using RadioDNS technology, which means it's connected, to the internet. It's a hybrid radio. When you tune to a station, the receiver sends out over the internet to the RadioDNS server a code, and a code that consists of the pi code of the station if it's FM, and the frequency, which is a unique combination, by the way. And then what the RadioDNS server does is it sends back to the receiver the location where that station's internet content is available. So the RadioDNS service itself isn't handling content, it's just a pointer to where that content resides, and the broadcasters decide where they want that to be.
Okay.
So DNS, that's the domain name server, right? That's where the name came from.
Okay.
So it's mostly the rate. So it turns out that different automakers use different technologies to support hybrid radio. We know I've mentioned Mercedes, Kia, Hyundai, Genesis are using DTS AutoStage. Audi is another another manufacturer supporting hybrid. In fact, they were the first manufacturer to do so. They use technology called Radio Player, and they use RadioDNS. So if a broadcaster wants their hybrid content to appear in an Audi, they need to have set up what's called a service information file. And that's what this RadioDNS server will point to when someone tunes into the station. It'll point to the SI file that station has set up, and it may be, they may host it themselves. They may have a service provider hosting it. But that's how the hybrid technology works in the case of Audi. For xperi, I'll say it again, the best way to work with xperi is to not go through RadioDNS, but to sign up with them directly. Gotcha. Because of all the benefits, and it's free. I mean, why would you not do that? It's you'd be crazy not to.
I'll put a link in the show notes to xperi. I'll try to get the exact sign up page, but certainly to the page about AutoStage.
Right.
Okay. Alrighty.
You mentioned IP devices, though. I wanted to say one more thing about RadioDNS.
Sure.
Currently, this database that RadioDNS has of where internet content is located for all these radio stations is only accessible by a radio receiver, because you need those key numbers that I was talking about, pi code and frequency.
Okay.
The RadioDNS membership is currently considering a proposal which would give IP-only devices access to the RadioDNS database. And this is a fundamental shift in the service. Because at the present time, IP-only devices, it's very difficult. And IP-only, if somebody has the resources, they can brute force determine where the content is located that's formatted in RadioDNS format. But by and large, they can't access that. So we are considering, the membership is considering, and the board is recommending that we do this, that we set up a procedure whereby IP-only devices can access the database. And we think that this will, this will increase the value of the RadioDNS information, because now a broadcaster puts it in the RadioDNS format, and then multiple receiver technologies have access to it.
I think dovetailing real well is one of the topics that you put on your list that we should talk about, but this seems to me like a great time to talk about it. And that is the importance of broadcasters paying attention to their metadata, that it works well, that it's formatted correctly, and then sent to some of these important places, not just to your RDS encoder and not just to your streaming provider, but maybe some other places as well. Can you talk about that? Metadata to a lot of broadcasters seems like a very secondary or tertiary level of importance. But if we want to be there, be a player amongst our competitors now, which all have metadata, it does seem very important to get done. Would you talk to us about that?
Very important. And in fact, I mentioned that NABA, the North American Broadcasters Association, is a partner at the NAB Show Engineering Conference. And the session that NABA is hosting is called Hybrid Radio. It's all about the metadata. And we are going to be talking about a new document that NABA will be releasing at the show called NABA Insights on Hybrid Radio and Metadata for Broadcasters. And it talks about, how it works, why it's important. There's a list of existing service providers. So that's a resource that NABA is making available to broadcasters about metadata. It couldn't be more important for broadcasters to get on board with providing good metadata. And xperi makes it pretty easy. And if you think back to those pictures we looked at, if I had scrolled through the station list, what you would have noticed is nearly every station had a logo and some information about it. And that is a level of consistency that I would have thought impossible in local radio, because the problem is, and this is an issue with the RadioDNS method of populating the metadata, is only the stations that are doing it are going to show up.
Okay.
And I can tell you, I have done. I don't have an Audi with hybrid radio, but I've test driven one in our market here in DC. And I can tell you when you scroll through the station guide, it's kind of paltry, the number of stations which are actually providing the metadata, and it does not reflect well on local radio. So we have a guide. I would send people to the NAB.org website. If you look under, there's an auto initiative link. I think it's under innovation is the main link, and then there's an auto initiative. We have a document that we put together. It's called Best Practices for the Digital Dashboard. And again, it's not, it's different than the NABA document, but it has a lot of the same information, and it's emphasizing to broadcasters the importance of doing this. Should not be optional. Your audio program isn't optional, and the metadata shouldn't be optional either.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. That the metadata now is as important as your audio, because it provides that contextual information that people are looking for. They glance their eyes over if they're driving, they expect to see something. That's
you mentioned the display in the Hyundai and the Mercedes display is even more impressive. That is becoming the norm. I was at the LA Auto Show in last November, and I can tell you that's what auto manufacturers are putting in their vehicles. They're putting in big, colorful touchscreen displays, and they look awfully empty when a broadcaster isn't providing any metadata.
Gotcha. Hey, we're talking to David Layer. David is Vice President of Advanced Technology Initiatives at the NAB. He's going to be at the NAB show. He has a big part in choosing, what happens at the NAB show and coordinating different things there, including something that Chris Tarr and I both love, and that is the ham reception. And no, it's not food. Well, they do have food, a little bit of food, but it's for ham radio operators. It's for us amateur radio guys to get together. Hey, Chris, I forgot to ask, Chris, are you going to be able to make it out to NAB this year?
Nope, not this year. Got too much going on. A lot of projects happening right now.
Well, at the ham reception, I'll pick up a ticket for you. I'll just say, hey, I'm Chris Tarr's proxy, and I'll get you a ticket.
There you go.
And if yours wins, you and I can talk about how much you'll need to pay me for the prize.
I knew there was a catch somewhere in there.
No, I'd give it to you. Oh my gosh. I've had people leave and give me their tickets and they won something. Of course, I had to go chase them down the next day. Look what you won, 800 feet of coax. Or something
great.
Cool. Oh, hey, our show is brought to you in part by Broadcasters General Store, and one of the lines they represent is Henry Engineering. Now, we've had Hank Landsberg on the show before, and I need to bring Chris Tarr into this conversation. Chris, do you have a favorite Henry Engineering product, something that you just use, kind of by default order when you build a studio?
Matchboxes are one for sure.
Matchboxes. For sure. Yeah.
And the Super Relay is one that I've really grown to appreciate.
And of course, now they have the replacement for the Super Relay. I can't believe I can't remember what it's called. I've advertised it over and over again here. I'm having a senior moment. The Super, what is it? Oh gosh, it lights up LED lights. It's Super Light. Thank you. Man, leave it to sun. Yes, here it is on their website. The LED tally light controller called the Super Light. Chris, there's something. The back UPS. That's a great thing. If you got a whole rack of gear on a UPS or several items, and you need to service that UPS, what do you do? Well, this UPS switcher that Hank makes will switch you back over to shore power. The back UPS fail-safe power switch, it'll switch you over while you're working on the UPS, because UPSs can fail too. In fact, I've probably had as many UPS failures as I have had power failures. Maybe I'm using the wrong UPSs. I don't know. But the other thing that Henry makes is their power clamp. And this is a really cool product. Let me see if I can get over to it here. And at the same time, let's see if Suncast can get over to here we go, the power clamp. We're coming up on thunderstorm lightning season for a lot of us in the U.S. And the power clamp prevents lightning damage. It improves your system reliability. It helps you stay on the air with power clamp surge suppressors. Now, these are not your ordinary surge suppressors. Of course not, because Hank Landsberg's got his name on these things. The power clamp TVS units should be installed at transmitter sites and at studio locations to prevent power line problems from causing you malfunctions and damage to your audio and or video equipment. They have a Series 80 and a Series 200, two different sizes, for different size installations. These are available for 3-phase power as well as single-phase power. And I want to tell you a couple of, you don't realize always what a surge suppressor does for you. You don't know that your equipment's been saved, right? Well, let me tell you a couple of testimonials. Tom Koza, I've met Tom. What a great engineer. And his son is taking over a lot of the engineering duties now, but at KPWR in Los Angeles, Tom, now this was a few years ago, but Tom wrote, our CCA transmitter would occasionally trip breakers and go off the air without any obvious cause. Tom says, I had installed a power clamp at KWVE a few years earlier, and then they had a similar problem, so he put one at KPWR. The power clamp units solved the K-Power problem immediately, and since then I've installed power clamp units at KSCA Los Angeles, and will be installing one at KLVE Los Angeles. He says, I've made it my standard operating procedure to install a power clamp unit at any transmitter site that I'm responsible for. He says, they are not snake oil. They really, really work. And as engineers, sometimes, our spidey sense sneaks in when we're told about something like a TVSS, surge suppressor. And Hank Landsberg researched these quite well. He knows the people who designed them. And this is one of the few products that Hank actually didn't design. But he represents power clamp to the broadcast industry, and I can recommend them too. Power clamp lightning surge suppressors available through Broadcasters General Store. To get to Broadcasters General Store, go to bgs.cc, like you see on the screen there, or call them at 352-622-7700. That's Broadcasters General Store. Good folks there, carry lots of stuff, including equipment from my employer, Telos Alliance, and they carry the full line of Henry Engineering products, including the Henry Engineering Power Clamp series. Thanks a lot, Henry Engineering and Broadcaster General Store, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, it's Chris Tarr and Kirk Harnack here. We're talking with David Layer of the NAB. And David, let's see, we got another topic or two to cover. What would you like to cover, David, that we haven't
let's go to
yet?
Pilot.
Yeah, tell us about Pilot.
So Pilot is it used to be called NAB Labs. It's our innovation initiative. And we do a lot of cool projects through Pilot. We have Pilot members. I should have written the list down. Xperi is one of our most active members of Pilot. We have digital companies like Facebook and Google, I believe, are members. And there's a lot of digital work going on within Pilot. You may have read about a project that NAB's involved in with international group of broadcasters and companies to help improve the radio experience on the Android Automotive platform, not to be confused with Android Auto.
Oh, okay.
Android Automotive is an operating system that many cars are going to, and the early implementations, were really lacking in good radio features. So that was a very ambitious project that Pilot has been involved in. It's ongoing. It's my colleague, John Clark, is the guy who is the executive director of Pilot. And you should, if you haven't already, Kirk, you should really have him on as a guest.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm writing his name down right now, John Clark.
Pilot. Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of a tourist. But there's a couple things I want to mention about Pilot relating to the show. One of the projects that's been undertaken by Pilot is development of what we call the Broadcast Positioning System. And it makes use of ATSC 3 signals to provide a GPS substitute for positioning.
Okay.
And it's something that, can be used as a backup, for example. And this is something that people who use GPS care about. They want some redundancy, and the Broadcast Positioning System, or BPS, is designed to provide that. So that work's been spearheaded by my colleague TWiRT Mondal. He's another NAB technology staffer. He will be talking about that at the show on Saturday at 3:00. So I think you all would be, your viewers would be well advised to check that out. It's pretty exciting development from Pilot. The other show related thing I'll mention about Pilot is the Innovation Challenge. It's a contest, if you will, to showcase emerging products or prototypes that are poised to help broadcasters, rise to some of their key challenges and in the coming years. And we've been doing it for a number of years. The winners for this year's challenge will be announced in just about 2 weeks. And at the show on Monday at 4:20, those winners will be giving presentations about their technology. So, and they'll also be, I believe, they get a stand in the Futures Park area of the exhibit. It's a pretty cool honor for the companies. NAB flies them out to the show, and it's that's another thing that Pilot is involved in and has been doing now for a while.
Those are fantastic things. I found a paper from 2 years ago about this broadcast positioning system. I will provide a link to that in the show notes. And thanks for the tip on John Clark. I just looked him up, and we'll ask John to be on the show. Yep. Either we'll catch him at NAB or we'll get him after the NAB.
And there's
show.
Actually 2 presentations about BPS at the show.
Okay,
they're consecutive. So if you're there for one, you can just hang around and see the other. And they're with different companies, NAB and other companies, because we have partners who are actually developing prototypes and stuff.
Okay.
So
all right,
that's pretty cool. That's one of the coolest things I dare say that has come out of Pilot in the last couple of years.
Hey, one more.
I wish it was my project.
Another quick topic or question before we get to our last break and then our tip of the week. How are you seeing ATSC 3.0? And we've talked to Mark Aitken on the show a couple of years ago, but how are you seeing ATSC dovetail in with the interest of radio broadcasters?
Well, it just so happens that I have some notes here. I wrote that down. I didn't put the day. There is a presentation by One Media, and I think that it's on Sunday, about using ATSC 3 for audio service delivery.
Right. And
this is I mentioned that I review papers for the proceedings, and this is actually one of the papers that I've reviewed. And I can tell you it's great work and very fascinating stuff, and very relevant because if you go to the ATSC booth at the show, or if you went to the ATSC booth at CES, you will see, I think Sinclair has partnered with Hyundai Mobis, which is the tier 1 arm, if you will, of Hyundai that creates the infotainment hardware that Hyundai uses in their vehicles. They have, I believe they've committed to putting ATSC 3.0 chips in radios.
Wow.
And there's a project up in Michigan, and it should be easy to learn more about, where they're demonstrating seamless data broadcasting coverage through multiple service areas of ATSC 3 signals, kind of like cellular. I mean, it's how you drive through cellular service areas seamlessly, and it switches from one cell to the next. That's the idea behind what Sinclair has been demonstrating up in Michigan. And I believe there's a station, I don't remember the call sign, that has set aside bandwidth for experimentation by auto companies and universities and whoever might have a good thing to test. So it's nascent. But it's ongoing work. And the audio service thing is really quite interesting. I think the trial that One Media is talking about had, I'm going to say, 14 audio services in this, in an equivalent 200 kilohertz bandwidth.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so their claim is that they can do 14 audio services in the same bandwidth as a FM signal.
There are some amazing efficiencies to be had there. David, we could go on for another hour. We tell you what, we've got about 10 minutes at the most to go. Chris and I are going to talk about a couple more sponsors of our show. And then after that, David, as long as you're feeling okay, I'd love to have you give us a tip of the week or something you'd like to make sure that our listeners are aware of. I've got a lot of show notes to put in this week's show, so we're going to try to link to a lot of the things that you've talked about. This week in Radio Tech, David Layer, I'm so glad to have him here, is our guest, and we've got just a couple more minutes together. Chris Tarr, you've got some things to tell us about our sponsor, Angry Audio. They're literally down the road from my house right here. I get to go stop by there every now and then. Chris, what do you got for us?
They're amazing guys over there, what they come up with. Catfish and the folks down there. Today we're going to talk about audio processing. I know we've talked about this before, but just like music, you've got country and western, both types. Well, you've got all these types of broadcast processing from Angry Audio, and all with a separate little niche that you want to use these to fill. First of all is a C3 headphone processor. And one of the things that we found over the years with HD radio and digital STLs and those things is you lose that ability to have processed audio in your headphones when you're talking. And some people are used to that. Some people, it's very distracting. Or even when you're trying to mix something live on the air, if you're on a station that is HD, a lot of times you're doing that without any processing. So you're not really hearing what the fades are doing and things like that. That's where the C3 comes in. It's basically a headphone and studio processor that kind of massages air into making it sound like it's OTA or over-the-air audio. And so it's a great little add-on for studios. And basically, your talent can listen to things the way the listeners sound. It's big, it's bold, and it sounds great. And you're not having to fight with that program audio to hear it. The next one up is the Chameleon C4, and that's for live streaming. So I know there's a lot of churches that have started using them for their live streams. We have a lot of streamers that are using it. Basically, it's processing for streaming. And of course, when you're listening to streaming, you get quiet stuff and loud stuff and stuff that's not real intelligible over the stream. The Chameleon C4 dresses that all up and makes it sound great. So whatever you're streaming, it's going to sound really good on the other end. It's going to be consistent, it's going to be clean, and it's going to sound fantastic with the Chameleon C4 live stream. Then, finally, another step up from there is the Chameleon C-Level. Now, we all know it's not very easy to get Arianes anymore. They're not making compellers anymore. There really isn't anything decent in the way of pre-processing. For example, in front of an STL or something like that, or just a way to, really get the sweet spot in your older processors. Those boxes don't exist anymore. C-Level has stepped in to do that. And basically, it makes your audio sound cleaner, more full, even a little tinge of analog sound to it. Corny Gould, the man, the myth, the legend, is behind the algorithms on the Audio Chameleon. And it will make new processors sound good. It'll make older processors sound phenomenal. You want to check this out. And it's also relatively inexpensive. So you're not having to give up a whole lot to get a whole lot to make your audio sound better on the air. That is the Chameleon C-Level. And finally, something you'll be seeing very soon is the Chameleon C5S, which is the software version of the Chameleon. That is, you can use that as a regular live stream processor with the software, or it also comes with a VST plugin, so you can use it in your favorite audio editing software. All of those things, you can check them out online at angryaudio.com. When you get frustrated with all these problems, guess what? Get angry. All your problems are going to disappear.
Wow, that's a heck of a promise. Max Connect can make certain of your problems disappear. This is just a 4G LTE modem, but the thing about it that makes it cool is the SIM card that's in it. It's from Max Connect Wireless. Max Connect, Josh Bone has made special deals with the major carriers in the U.S. and even one of the carriers in Canada to give you prioritized data. You can be in a stadium full of people all doing their Facebook updates at halftime and all getting terrible bandwidth, and you, the broadcaster, you have just the same bandwidth you had when nobody was there because yours is prioritized over everybody except first responders. And Max Connect Wireless makes that happen. I have used this in several emergency situations for my own stations and for WEVL in Memphis, and I know there are literally hundreds of examples of broadcast engineers who have needed emergency, hey, our regular carrier is gone. Our regular internet access is gone, taken out by lightning or high winds, or in my case, a tornado that went right by our studio. And we use Max Connect Wireless to stay on the air and keep the data packets flowing. And Weevil, WEVL, lightning strike took out their business class Comcast modem, and this kept them on the air during pledge drive. Yeah, so they really needed to be on the air. So Max Connect Wireless, check it out. Go to maxconnectwireless.com. You can sign up for a SIM card through your favorite carrier, AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon in the U.S., and you can even get one that has 2 SIM cards. So if you're portable and you're not sure which one's going to work best in your area, well, get 2 SIM cards. Josh Bone will hook you up with a really good system that's going to work for you and keep you on the air, or get internet to your transmitter site that you didn't have it before. All right. Thanks a lot. Max Connect Wireless and Josh Bone. There's a link in the show notes. You can click on it and get right to their website. All right. We are here with our final few minutes with David Layer and Chris Tarr. And David, I'm going to give you the floor here. What would you like for our listeners and viewers to walk away with? What's important to you that ought to be important to us?
Well, I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to go back to the old, it's all about the metadata. I encourage broadcasters to sign up with DTS AutoStage if they haven't already. And I would encourage them to support RadioDNS service information files because it's easy to do. It gets you into those Audis because just signing up with DTS AutoStage, excuse me, will not get your station looking better in Audi cars that have hybrid radio. So those are 2 things easily done. They don't cost anything pretty much. I guess there's some, there'll be labor involved with somebody who's doing it, but it's not like you have to go buy a new box.
Right.
And it's critically important. It's critically important that broadcast radio, that local radio look consistent on these big, colorful, connected car displays. And you can't just have a list of stations where, 2 out of 10 have a logo.
Yeah.
You really look like the poor cousin. So there it is. That's my tip of the week. Thanks, Kirk.
All right. Chris Tarr, you got a quick tip for us today?
Sure. Have a plan C and a plan D. I was up at one of my transmitter sites today, or not today, 2 days ago, earlier this week. And, we talked about this before. I had my my FLIR, and I noticed that part of the transmission line seemed really, really warm. So I went, okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, replace the bullet. I'm thinking maybe it's just the bullet. So I crack open the line and there is smoke pouring out of it. It is not the bullet. It is the inner conductor is completely burned up. Well, now that we've taken it apart, I can't put it back together. So we're off the air. This is the line that goes from just outside of the watt meter set line section down to the elbow at the bottom of the tower. So now what? We're off the air. This is one of our big stations. So fortunately, you give it enough time and think about it. We were able to determine that we had enough 1 5/8" line coming out of the transmitter to the coax switch that by knocking out some old HVAC stuff in the wall, we could run it outside and get it out to the tower. However, the tower had 3-inch line going up, 3 1/8" line. Well, I always carry adapters with me, the adapter plates. Oh. So what could have been, carry 2 or 3 of each. So what could have been off the air for days trying to figure this out we were off the air for about an hour or two, just because, first of all, take the time to just slow down and think. And, and instead of going, oh, well, we're done, I better order some stuff. I kept looking around going, okay, how can we make this work? And, thinking outside of the box. Well, if we knock out this ventilation shaft, that's a nice gap outside of the, outside the building, we can make it reach around. And again, would have been stuck if I hadn't had an adapter. We could have gotten there, couldn't have adapted it. So I always carry those with me. So always be thinking about those points of failure and what you can do to get around them.
Good advice. Good advice. And I have adapters, but I keep them at a transmitter side. I don't carry them with me, but you travel all over the place. So yeah, I can see that.
Yes, carry them with you. They don't do you any good if they're 3 hours away.
Yeah, right. Thanks for that tip. Good deal. Plan C and a plan D. And David Layer, thank you for taking the time to be with us. I hope you feel better. I know you're convalescing a bit. Look at that hat.
Here we go. It's like I'm back at the ballpark.
That's right. I'd love to go to the Nationals ballpark sometime. Sometime if I'm in
the year they won the World Series.
Oh, okay. Well, good deal.
Which is what happened for the Nats. And I had the distinction of being the only person at the SLC wearing a Nats champions hat. So I felt pretty good about that.
I'd love to go to a game with you. That would be an absolute blast. All right, we got to go. It's been This Week in Radio Tech with David Layer from the NAB. You can see him and talk to him and hear the presentations that he's personally approved at the NAB Show 2023 in Las Vegas. Chris Tarr, thank you for being here as well. I really appreciate your input today. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. And thanks to Suncast for switching and producing today's show on This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.